So today we're going to be talking about different ways to motivate your students through scientifically proven methods. And specifically, we're going to be looking at the music model of motivation, which is by Brett D. Jones. So go ahead and get started. Okay, so what is motivation? It most directly affects learning and performance outcomes, and it has four parts. The first part is extent, which is the magnitude of the intent, and it can vary from no motivation to high motivation. Next is intent, which often emanates from goals. Then is engagement, which is also known as active learning. It can be observed, such as when a student is taking notes, or unobserved, such as when a student might be deep in thought in the subject matter, but by looking at them, you might not think they are because they're gazing out a window or have a glazed look on their face, but really they are engaged with the material. And then the last part is an activity. So individuals will direct motivation towards certain activities, not all of them, in order to reach their goals. Since individuals are constantly making decisions about which activities to take part in and which not to, they have to analyze the costs and benefits of each activity and whether it'll help them achieve their goal. Two important factors that go into this are the amount of time the activity will take to complete and the perceived importance of the activity. So our goal is to create motivating conditions through assignments, assessments, teaching, communication, and more. If you make assignments that engage your students, it'll help foster motivation in them. Assessments can gauge how much they're learning and what you can do to improve their motivation. Finding the right teaching style that works for you and your students is important. And then also communicating in a way that is welcoming and also easy for students to understand. So one way we can go about this is by applying the music model, which is an acronym which stands for empowerment, usefulness, success, interest, and caring. All of these are focused on the students' perceptions of their learning environment. For example, teaching students effective learning strategies can increase their perceptions that they can succeed in the course. So let's go over these points one by one. Empowerment is it means that the design gives students choice, control, or freedom to make decisions within the course. Usefulness is when the design leads students to believe that the course content, assignments, and activities are useful for their future. Success means students believe that they can succeed at a high level if they put forth the effort required. Interest means that the content and instructional activities are interesting to the students. And caring means that the students believe that the instructor and other students truly care about their learning and the students as people. So our uses for the music model are designing instruction to motivate others, diagnosing problems that might hinder motivation, and researching factors that are associated with motivating others. So first is empowerment. These are some student statements that you might hear from students who have a high perception of empowerment within your course. I have the freedom to complete the coursework my own way. I have options for how to achieve the goals of the course, control over how I learn the course content, flexibility. And then when you're evaluating your course or doing an assessment, you can ask them what could be changed to make you feel you had more choices in the course. And on each of these slides, I've also got relevant theories that back up each point that we're going over if you want to do more research into it independently. Next, we've got usefulness. And here's some student statements you might hear if they have a high level of perceived usefulness from your course. If they feel that the coursework is useful to them, beneficial, relevant to their future, and that the knowledge they gain will be important for their future. This said, some prerequisite courses that students don't necessarily elect to take themselves, but they're required, students might not feel it's as useful, and that's a common problem. And it's going to be unavoidable in some instances. But even though they might not have chosen that course and might not be as excited as students who chose to be there, There are still ways to work around it and make them realize that the content will eventually be useful to them, at least in establishing their long-term goals and to getting where they want to be eventually. Next, it's success. And here's some student statements that you might hear from that. If they're confident that they can succeed in the coursework, that they can be successful in meeting the academic challenges in the course, getting a high grade, and throughout the course feeling that they could be successful on the coursework. Next is interest. So the instructional methods used in this course hold their attention. They enjoy the instructional methods. They enjoy completing the coursework, and it's interesting to them. A common problem that hinders their interest in a course can be a lack of variety. Oftentimes there's too much focus on reading textbook chapters and doing quizzes, things like that. Instead, it's useful to make the activities appeal to their emotions and relate it to real life situations, and then give them options for how they can complete the assignments. And if you want more ideas for how to do that, I have a webinar that I did a few weeks ago called Antidote for the Blahs. And I've got a link to that on the final slide of this presentation. The recording is available on our YouTube channel. So I've got a couple ideas in there for how you can make your online courses more engaging. And then the final one is caring. So this means that they feel that the instructor is willing to help them, that the instructor cares about how they do in the course, that the instructor is respectful and friendly. And this can be particularly challenging in online courses because there's no face-to-face interaction. One way to facilitate it, though, is to prominently display your contact information on the course homepage. And if you're comfortable with it, just put a picture of yourself up there because they like putting a face with a name. It's also useful if you could make an introduction video at the beginning of your course just to tell them a bit about yourselves and your interests and why you decided to become a professor in that subject and everything. And then ask them to make an introduction video in return to build that rapport between you and your students. And then if you want to take it a step further, for asynchronous classes, you could do a weekly post of just you talking to your students, explaining the assignments as much face-to-face as you can. And then if you have a synchronous class meeting online, I would suggest just turning on your camera like I have right now, just so they can see you talking to them and put a face with the voice. Okay, and next we've got a couple diagrams from the music model book. So you can see the first step is to select your course objectives, select your instructional and music strategies, implement those strategies, and then assess your students' understanding of how their perceptions of those, how that works into the course. And you can do that by asking them those questions that I had on the previous 5 slides, to ask them when you're evaluating. And then once you get their responses, you can look at the results and see if there's any areas that have problems and how you can improve those. And then here's a little more complicated diagram, but it's got a lot of good information in it. It goes over the external variables that go into the music model and student motivations. I won't read the whole thing because there's a lot of text on there, but I'll give you a moment to look over that before I move on. Okay, are there any questions about that before I go to the next slide, which is actually the end of the presentation? Okay, let me give you this link. Just a brief survey. I can figure out how to get to the chat from here.
I was just wondering, Kristen, this question is for everyone in attendance. Do you have any specific ways that you would like to share that you motivate students, especially if you teach maybe 1 or 2,000 level courses? What are some of the ways in which you motivate students? If if nobody wants to share, I always categorize these two as like the carrot versus the stick. I guess the using the stick as sort of grades and carrots as sort of maybe bonus assignments and that sort of thing. So I see some responses down in the chat.
Yeah, I'll just read those out loud for anyone who's watching this recording in the future. Um, we have one person say, I send a Monday morning announcement each week. Another person said, I try to relate the information to the students and show them how it will be useful to them in their lives. And then another person said, I humanize myself.
Yeah, I really value the all three of them are kind of a way in which it's humanizing because I think students choose to come to UNC Pembroke for that sort of experience, and I think that when we sort of humanize ourselves and add those personal type touches, I think that's what the essence of much of what our students were looking for. Many of them when they decided to come to us. So I appreciate those professors that choose to do that.
Me too. We got one more response. I also like to give them choices for assignments. Sometimes students do not complete bonus assignments. And that's good because, I mean, if they don't want to get extra points, they don't have to, but then the option is still there for people who do. So it's definitely nice to give optional assignments like that.
Yeah, and a lot of research shows that the theory of andrology suggests that students that typically enroll in online courses may be adults, yeah, adult learners, and maybe sort of independent, and they like having some sort of say so in their experience, and giving them choices, and giving them options for that sort of voice to help kind of create their path is something that the research indicates that they value.
Mhm.
So I have a question. In this model, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Um, so success was defined as the ability that students would be able to be successful if they put forth the effort. So
Yeah.
my question is to everyone, what about ones who don't want to put forth effort and they still think they can be successful? So I mean, they keep saying, I want an A in this course, and then they skip, 4 assignments in a row. So the behavior and the action, I mean, the actions and the words don't match. So I mean, I'm interested to hear what anybody has to say about that.
One thing I wanted to drive home about the music model, it's based on the student's perception. So you don't have any control over whether a student decides to put forth that effort or not. It's really more focused on, do they feel like they can be successful in the class if they put forth the effort? And um, but I don't know what to say about thinking they can be successful even if they don't put forth the effort. That sounds like sort of an issue with entitlement or something. But
Well,
yeah.
sorry. Well, I basically continue to acknowledge them even if they're not doing the complete assignment and compliment what they have done and just kind of throw in there, and if you would do this to go with that, then you probably could be at A status. I would say you could be, not that they are.
Yeah, and I think it's a good strategy too when you're whenever you're providing feedback to sort of start off with something that they done right. Say, the way you approached such and such was spot on, or you done a good job of
Right.
this part. But you may want to this would have been better, or this would have been an A if you would have approached this part of it
Right.
a certain way. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what the success part of this is about, just making them realize what they need to do in order to be successful. And if you are giving them that positive feedback that you did this well, but you could have gotten an A if you had done this differently, then they know what they need to do to succeed. And they'll have that perception that if they put forth the effort required, they will be successful.
Sometimes putting them in the mood to learn using music is a good idea. I've done it decades ago when I taught elementary school. I've done it with high school. I've done it with freshmen in college. Play music from my era and then have them pick a theme song that I would play each time we meet at the beginning, not the entire song, but to open up the chorus. And music, period, really puts you into a mood that either you want to do this or, you want to hear the lyrics, you want to be encouraged or you don't.
That's a good idea. Were there any other questions or comments? Nope. Okay, did everyone get a chance to fill out that survey link? Let me send it one more time.
I don't know if mine went through.
Yeah, I just sent it one more time in case it got buried with the other comments.
Is this the question of was this presentation helpful?
Yep. Yeah, we're doing
Okay.
a new survey where it's just one question.
Okay, so has this presentation been on longer than I realized? I mean,
Nope, it's been a shorter one. We're at about 20 minutes now.
oh, so is this the end of it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I got on late because I was doing something I forgot. Because I thought, well, usually you give those surveys at the end. And so this is I didn't realize it's the end.
Yeah, I've boiled it down quite a bit. I read, I think, 4 chapters, maybe 5, over the past week, and just kind of pulled out what I felt was the most important, and that was able to go over without overwhelming anyone. So
Oh,
it
I'm
ended
sorry
up
I
being
missed
pretty
it.
short.
Sorry I missed it.
Oh no, it's fine. We're recording it, so it'll be on YouTube within the next day probably.
Okay. Right.
And all of this information, I got it from Motivating Students by Design by Dr. Brett Jones. And I have links to that book on the final slide. Let me go ahead and navigate to that. And then there's also a website about the music model. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, I just learned about this at a conference I attended. I think it was back in February, but he gave a presentation about the music model, and I thought it was really intriguing. So I bought his book and read it, and that's what today was all about. So
Thanks, Kristen. Do you mind sharing those links in the chat as well?
sure, I can do that.
Thank you.
And then that last one is just a link to the webinar I did about different ways you can engage your students in your online classes through activities.
Hmm.
Okay, well, I think that about wraps it up. So I'll go ahead and end the presentation now. Thanks everyone for attending. And if you have any questions, you can email me, or Terry and I are both available for ID consultations through the bookings link. So thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.